So here it is, my new motorcycle, the Royal Enfield Bear 650. I wonder if any of you could have guessed what bike I was going to get, because I think it's probably pretty obvious. So in this video, I'm going to tell you why I've got a Bear 650. Now, back in November, we were one of the first people in the world to ride the Bear 650 in India. We flew out to Anjuna and we got our hands on a Bear 650 for a couple of days during the Motorverse Festival, and it's safe to say that both of us absolutely fell in love with this bike. It's everything I want in a motorcycle. It's rugged, it's flipping good looking, the proportions are perfect, it's nice and tall, so it's brilliant for a taller rider like myself. And it's got so much character. This engine is not only stunning, but sounds fantastic, especially this particular exhaust sounds better than a lot of the other 650 models, perhaps because it's not got as much silencing, because it comes into one pipe at the back rather than two. But I'm going to make it sound even better in the next video. So a bit predictable of me, I'm going to change the exhaust straight away, because I know for a fact this engine can sound unbelievable, because we heard so many cool bikes in India that just blew our minds. Now, as many of you will be well aware, I recently had a major issue with my Moto Guzzi, with the engine failing and the rocker bridge arm snapping. So if you haven't watched that video, go back and watch it after this one. But I contacted Royal Enfield and I told them my predicament, that I was out of action, I didn't have a motorbike, and they stepped in and they said, well, do you fancy a Bear? We know how much you love it. Let's give you one for 6 months. So no, this isn't a sort of clickbait, oh, this is my new bike, but it's not actually my new bike. The idea with this is that I'm going to customize this motorcycle to my own liking, so I can do what I like with this bike, and at the end of it I will buy a Bear 650. So that's the plan. It gets me out of trouble with my predicament, just to get straight onto a bike without having to order one and wait for 2 months for a brand new one. So thank you so much to Royal Enfield for helping me out with this bike. But I've got some incredible plans with this thing. And to start with, I want to talk about the colour of this motorcycle. So this colour is called Wild Honey. And this is actually, from what I can tell, this seems to be one of the most popular colours, especially in the UK, because technically this isn't actually available to buy in the UK in this colour yet. It's available in Spain, I think. But it's actually my least favourite colour, if I'm being honest with you. It's very bright, and it sort of reminds me of the Suzuki motocross bikes. It's a very similar colour scheme with the yellow and the blue. Seeing it in the flesh, I actually think it looks better than it did in the pictures and videos that I had seen of this bike. But nevertheless, as this bike is part of a customization project of my own, I think it would be incredible to do my own custom paint job on this bike. So that's coming up very soon. I'm going to respray this whole bike in a completely different colour that no one in the world has a Bear in that colour. So stay tuned for that, because it's going to be really interesting. I'm not telling you what colour yet. You've got to guess what colour I'm going to spray this bike. Now, I just want to interrupt this video to make sure that if you're not subscribed, that you click subscribe, because you don't want to miss my series with this Bear 650. It's going to be incredible. What I'm going to do to it is just going to completely transform this bike and make it the coolest Bear 650 in the world. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure you like the video and leave your comments down below what you think I should do to this bike. Now, I did say this earlier, but I think the Bear 650 is the best sounding 650 Royal Enfield from standard. It's got a really nice deep tone with this 2-into-1 exhaust, and it's got some lovely pops and burbles. So it's a good sounding bike, but it's not particularly loud, because obviously it has to comply with all the regulations. So I've already got an exhaust for this bike waiting in the garage ready to fit, so I'm going to fit that next week, so that might be the next video on the channel, is changing the exhaust. But what it's going to do is essentially, and this is exactly what I said in India, oh, if only you could get rid of that big silencer section, because the front half of the exhaust is very good looking, and that's exactly what this exhaust does. It's a decat pipe and then a new rear end, so it's going to sound unbelievable. It looks fantastic as well. It's a really awesome looking exhaust. I cannot wait to show you that one. Other things about this bike that I want to change: this blue seat, it's not to my taste. It's too blue. So not only that, but I do think that after a little while, the front part of this seat isn't particularly padded. So especially because I plan to do some long journeys on this bike, I've got a different seat from Royal Enfield. It's a Royal Enfield accessory seat. It's beautiful. So I will show you that in the next video, and that's going to make a massive difference. The other thing is the bars. Now these bars are fantastic actually. They've got a lovely width. They're beautiful to look at. But because I'm quite tall, 6'1", I think I need a little bit more rise on the bars and perhaps a tiny bit more width. And I've found the perfect bar to replace these, made in India. So they're on the way, so I'll be fitting those very soon as well. And that will just not only give it that really gnarly old school scrambler stance, but it'll make it more comfortable and make me so I'm not slanting over with my back, which is probably one of the reasons why I've got back trouble, because I'm always leaning over. So we now are both owners of Royal Enfield motorcycles. And no, we're not jumping on a Royal Enfield hype train or anything like that. We've got these bikes out of passion, pure passion, after reviewing pretty much every motorcycle over the last 5 years, apart from really hyper sports bikes. But we have reviewed sports bikes, nakeds, cruisers, you name it, adventure bikes. We've ridden everything, and that has helped us narrow down our taste. And these are the kind of bikes that we really, really love. This is what I wake up for in the morning. And going to India really just sold the Royal Enfield image to me. There were so many cool riders, well dressed, looking really stylish. The sort of bike scene out there is enormous. There's rides going on all the time. There was the Garage Cafe in Anjuna, which we just thought was the coolest biker hangout I've ever seen. We don't really have many places like that in the UK, apart from in London, but we try and avoid London like the plague, because it's not a very nice place to ride, whereas Anjuna is quite the opposite. It's a lovely place to ride. And the whole Motorverse festival, it was just unbelievable. We couldn't believe the sheer scale of the passion for Royal Enfield in India, and it obviously had an effect on us, because we left India thinking we've got to get one. Now in the past, the motorcycles that I've bought have had more chrome on them than this. This is a bit more blacked out, and after owning chrome motorcycles, especially the Harley that I had chrome wheels and chrome bars, lots of chrome on the engine, and whilst it looks beautiful, it's a pain in the backside because you've got to polish it every week, and if you don't do that, it doesn't look very nice. And even just leaving it in the garage, you think, oh, it's in the garage, it's going to be fine. You come back to it a month later in the freezing cold winter that we have here, and there was rust on the wheels of the Harley, which I then had to polish off. So that won't happen with this bike because it's painted black, and I actually think the blacked out look of the engine and the wheels on this bike really suit it in this model. It just looks fantastic. Now this year we've got some incredible plans with some motorcycle trips that we've got planned. We will be doing an incredible ride, well I will be doing a ride on this Bear 650 all the way down to the south of France, so that's going to be incredible, and I'm really excited to see how this bike rides out in the beautiful French roads, some incredible scenery, so that's going to be amazing. We have almost planned our India trip later in the year, which is just going to be utterly spectacular, like nothing you've seen before. It's just going to be incredible. 10 times better than last time, so stay tuned for that, and possibly even next year as well. We're talking about an India trip after that one. It's somewhere else in India. So stay tuned. Nothing to reveal yet, but shortly we'll have some incredible plans to tell you. So again, make sure you subscribe, because the series with this bike is just going to be amazing. I cannot wait to show you what I'm going to do to this thing.